What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Two Bucks Sports Podcast, your premier destination for all things sports. Fans, both foreign and domestic, checking in tonight. And my infamous colleague from North Mississippi, Mr. Drew Gann, Uncle Buck, on the podcast tonight. Welcome in, sir.
Oh, Buckets, what's cracking? I'm holding down the fort here in North Mississippi. I just wanted to give you a quick update. Our 8U girls softball team lost their first game in a heartbreaker the other day. I'm telling you, we lost by one run, and I had trouble sleeping. I'm telling you, I'm invested in 8U girls coach pitch softball. It is, I have the time of my life, and if there's one thing that I know about Little League softball, it's all about the parents' enjoyment, and I'm having a great time.
Absolutely. Nothing like getting involved in your kids' sports. I know when I go watch my nephews when I'm at home, and I'm more invested than any ball game like I've ever been a part of is watching them play.
Oh yeah. We got off the snide last night though with a commanding 9-5 win.
There it is.
So all things that end well. How's the saying go?
Wow. All things end well.
Yeah, all things that end well, end well.
That's what we're going with.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
The Stuttering Bucks podcast.
Yeah. Hey, are y'all still, because I know y'all are breaking it down to different things each week. Are y'all still the Lady Donuts, or?
After our last win, our team name is Ripley Feed, which is like the feed store here in town. Mm-hmm. I said, all right, what are we breaking it down to? And they said, let's just do our team name. And I was like, really? It's Ripley Feed? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, okay, but y'all got to be more creative next time.
Yeah. There you go. Put the charge back on them.
Right.
Well, Uncle Buck, we're going to do things a little different tonight. For those fans of us on our social medias, you may have seen on our Instagram that we've been asking questions of our fans to help us get warmed up and get us going for our conversations tonight. So we've had quite a few people responding, and so we're going to go through some of those questions. So
before you get that, my wife, who is in the other room, just texted me, "All's well that ends well." Like, oh, that's it.
That's it. All is well that ends well.
She should be on this podcast, not me.
Listen, man, this is a sports podcast, not a intelligence podcast, for good reason.
An intelligence podcast. Yeah. That may be the dumbest sentence we've uttered so far.
I don't know. We just said all ends well, ends well.
Yeah. So the Hugh Freeze experience.
It's something. All right. So we're going to go back to last week, and we're going to start. Speaking of your lovely wife, we've got a few questions here from her.
First, tell why we're just now reading last week's responses to our poll question.
Are we going to go into that?
Yeah. The people want to know why they're a week late.
All right. So, I get a text from Drew. Was that yesterday, day before?
Yeah, yesterday.
And he said, "Hey, man, have we been getting any answers to our poll? Haley just asked if we'd seen them." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know how to look these up." So I pull up my little Instagram app, and I'm poking around, and in the top there's a little heart, had a red dot on it, and I hit it. And I've got all kind of questions asked on here that I didn't even know had been asked.
Yeah. So basically, Rusty put out a survey for everybody to fill out and did not know how to look at the answers. So we're 2 weeks behind. So we're going to knock them all out tonight.
One step at a time, man. We're coming into this technology thing. We stepped into it by asking the questions. Don't ask me to get the answers. I did step one, man.
Yeah. It's only important if you know how to ask the question.
Yeah, apparently.
So what's the first question we got? I'm sure it's from my beautiful wife.
It is. And what's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
Oh. That in a former life, I was in a rock and roll band that played on the 50-yard line of the Carolina Panthers game.
There it is.
Everybody's like, "You?" And I was like, "Yeah." I had long hair and,
pick that base clean, man.
Yeah, party like a rock star. I mean, that's a genuine surprise. And people's like, "Oh, okay." And then I'm like, then I have to pull up the YouTube video to show them, and then they're like, "Oh wow, y'all were actually good." And I was like, "Yeah." They don't just let anybody in Bank of America Stadium.
Buy our album. It's on.
It's actually
Allison.
So If you've got it, you've got rare property. So,
And I have a copy.
so what about you?
For me, being here in South Carolina, I guess kind of the low hanging fruit is that I'm from Mississippi. Nobody here is from Mississippi. Everybody's from New England, New Jersey, Philly, West Virginia. I'm one of
No
the
curse.
few that came north. Most people think I'm from here because of the accent, but then when I say I'm from Mississippi, it's always I don't know anybody from Mississippi. I'm like, well, now you do.
And then they say, doesn't Mississippi have 4 S's instead of 2? And you're like, that's what I said, Mississippi.
That's what I said, Mississippi. That's how you spot a local.
Yeah. So, what's our next question?
What was the last thing that you Googled?
Now, this question is dangerous.
Very.
And when you sent me this one, it was something I was like, well, that's a great idea. If we ever have guests, that's got to be like a question we ask every guest.
Mm-hmm.
Is what was the last thing you Googled? And I just pulled mine up. And I guess it's a topic we can cover on this podcast.
Yeah.
Because it was news. It was Bob Huggins audio.
Oh, yes.
So I saw the headline that he took a reduction in salary by $1 million. He's doing sensitivity training, and I hadn't heard the story yet. So I Googled the audio because I wanted to hear it, and I'm telling you, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad. So
Yeah.
what was the last thing you Googled? And remember, this is a family podcast.
It ain't nothing like that. Today, I've got this thing. You know me, Drew. You and I are very similar. We always have like an office or a movie quote that we can pull up in a heartbeat.
Right.
And one of my go-tos is when people say, "What does that mean?" I always say, "No one knows what it means, but it's provocative and it gets the people going."
Yeah,
And I could not. No, it's not. I thought it was Step Brothers. I couldn't remember what movie it was from. It's a Will Ferrell movie.
Talladega Nights.
Nope.
It's not Step Brothers? I could have swore it was Step Brothers.
I swore up and down it was Step Brothers, and then I Googled it
one
today
of the
to
older
confirm.
ones.
It's a sports movie.
Well, I mean, I haven't seen Kicking and Screaming or Semi-Pro.
Kicking and Screaming was great. It wasn't Kicking and Screaming, not Semi-Pro.
And it's not Talladega Nights.
You're missing one big one. It's got what's his name from Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, Blades of Glory?
Blades of Glory. It's from Blades of Glory.
I guess I've seen the clip, but I don't think I've seen that movie either.
That one I didn't care for. Will Ferrell's really hot and cold for me, and I didn't care for Blades of Glory, but I know that scene. It's also in that song by Kanye West and all those guys that won't repeat the name of on here, but that's how it starts the song, and it's from Blades of Glory. So I Googled what movie that was from today.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess that's where I heard it from, maybe. Maybe Kanye got it for me.
Yeah, there you go. All right. How would your parents describe you?
Describe what you do. Right?
Yeah, what you do. Sorry. Yeah. What
so
you do.
As a job, what does my parents think if they had to tell? I mean, my dad can be a man of few words, so it's probably he gets the lights on in Tippah County, you know. And then my mom would drone on for a whole conversation about it, you know, without checking up and every single detail. My mom is the long form storyteller. My dad is get to the point, you know.
Yeah, very fair. Same observation in my family. My dad tells people I'm a physical terrorist.
That's true.
And I went to school for the arts of medieval torture.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So shout out to Pop.
That's awesome.
When I was in undergrad at Mississippi State, he would call me and he'd say, "Did you learn how to make people do jumping jacks today?" I'm like, "Dad, it's a little different than that."
My father-in-law, every time I get on the phone with him or he's on the phone with Haley, he thinks that my career is just driving the truck out and checking meters, being a meter reader, because that's all the people that he knows at his local utility. That's all they do. Mm-hmm. Apparently, his friends, and they just go out there and take naps. And so he every day asks me like how long of a nap I took. I'm like, it's a little bit more intense than that, you know.
Yeah, but, I'm a Mighty Morphin Power Ranger.
Yeah, I'm a Power Ranger. So.
And then my mom, same thing, drones on and on about dry needling, about physical therapy, about everything under the sun. You know, my mom, sweet lady. Brevity is not one of her strong suits.
No, neither with mine.
Yeah. Love you, Mama Lee.
Yeah, I love you too, Mama Lee.
All right. Also from your bride, what have you learned about yourself recently because of starting a podcast?
I learned that I like doing podcasts.
Yeah.
It's one of those things when we started, it was like, come on, everybody does a podcast.
Mhm.
I kind of feel like, maybe, I don't want to be one of thousands, but, you know, when you got on here and I got in here with Rusty, who is my best friend, and that we talk every week or every day about sports, found that it was kind of easy, and that especially sports and teams that I care about, I can talk about them,
Yeah.
even on camera and a microphone. Like, it's fun. I could do it every day.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And that, like, I know way too much about sports. Like, we sit here, we talk about it, and like, there's always facts and stats and stuff that come up, and we spit it back and forth. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but like, I've always, thought I knew a lot about sports, and there are times where I still struggle with it. But like, I feel like I know a fair amount more about sports than even I thought I knew.
Well, I kind of have the opposite feeling. I kind of feel like I'm underprepared for most times because I listen to these sports podcasters, and they're typically done by journalists who cover the team, and they've got stats and they know how to look them up. Every time I try to look up stats and create stats, if I want to look up, the last 30 games and, points or whatever, league wide, it takes me forever. And most time I just give it up. Like, for some reason, I cannot figure out how to work basketball reference.
Yeah.
It's too complicated for me. But
which we've always said we're not like a sports stats podcast. We're sports news, which we do better at, because I agree. Now, if we're getting down like brass tacks and numbers and trends and stuff, like, I'll only go as far as StatMuse, that now you have to pay for. As the free will carry me, and the NBA reference as well.
Yeah. And, for us, I've made no excuses. You have no illusions that I'm the stat guy, but I know where to get the stats that I care about, So go follow one of those guys that do the research, I'll give you credit. It's not straight plagiarizing. I'll put you in the works cited page at the end.
Absolutely. In every episode.
Right. So, I think that's me. Like, if I were to do this full-time job, I'd really have to learn how to use basketball reference and get my own stats here. And honestly, I probably need to watch more sports, which is something I never would have said, 6 months ago, that if I'm going to talk about sports every day or once a week and be well versed in a lot of things, like, there's a lot more games out there. Like tonight, there's a couple NBA games tonight, pivotal game 5s tonight. And I probably just need to stay up till midnight every night watching these late games, but I don't.
Yeah, same. And I think we do a good job for two, just average Joes who have, day jobs, and this is our little side gig. I think we do a good job. We don't get paid to look up stats like these journalists do. We've got other things, other responsibilities. But I agree. I think, like, for me, it's the one thing I feel like I know a lot about sports, and I didn't know as much about the NBA as I thought, because the NBA for me consisted of the Memphis Grizzlies and not a lot outside of that. Other than like big games, playoffs, NBA finals, or whatever. So I have watched and paid more attention to the NBA this year than I have in previous years. I kind of enjoyed it. A little more than I thought.
And since you brought it up, let's just make a plea to the audience here. Rusty said that this is a non-paid side gig, but if anybody would like to start paying us, we will sponsor anything.
Absolutely. We're not above any sponsorship of anything.
I mean, there are only a few things that I'd have to say no to, just ethically. But but I mean, I can be bought.
Yeah, and I have a price. So at $2 Sports Podcast on all your favorite social medias, hit us up, and we will pitch your business on here for a nominal fee.
Yeah.
So. All right. Next up, we're going to keep it in the family, and your cousin Kirk reached out with 3 straight questions.
This is a family podcast, isn't it?
It is.
In more ways than one.
In more ways than one. Matter of fact, we've only got one non-family question, which we'll get to in a minute. Is Will Levis a bust?
You go first.
Yeah, it's too early to tell, but if I had to put a rating on it, I give the odds probably about a 65-70% chance. I don't like what I see on film. He looked great in the combine. He looks great in shorts, but in a league where you basically got NFL players, reading your decisions, rushing you, defending your receivers, he just didn't play well. And so that's only going to get magnified, because you take the best player from each of those positions and put them in the NFL.
Right.
I don't like his chances.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said. The only thing I disagree with, the point that I would make here, is that it's much harder to bust, because when you think of bust, you think you know, what's
Jamarcus
his
Russell,
name?
Ryan
Jamarcus
Lee.
Russell. Yeah. You think number 1 overall pick, you think high first round pick. It's really hard to be really bad to be considered a bust when you're taken in the second round.
I'll say I would agree with that, except for he came and again, we talked about this last week. You brought this up, I believe. Like he fell a victim to the hype machine and the smoke and mirrors.
Yeah,
But
that
there was
that
so
was
much hype about him that unless he lives up to the hype that Mel Kiper and Todd McShay and these guys were putting on him, he'll be called a bust because they were calling him a top 10 draft pick. That's not what the NFL execs saw, but you and I saw it day in and day out on social media and on ESPN, on TV, that he was supposed to be a top 10 pick, and he's not that talented.
well, I kind of give him a pass on that because that was not Todd McShay and Mel Kiper got used. I mean, it's clear that everybody had a late first, early second round grade on him.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what he is. Now, the hot machine game and the smoke and mirrors came, and suddenly everybody thought he should be a top 10 draft pick. But the only reason why people thought that was because that's where the mocks had him.
Yeah.
And the mocks were being manipulated.
Yep.
I don't for the Indianapolis Colts to get Anthony Richardson.
Yeah. I don't disagree. Again, definitely not his fault, but the hype machine is going to cause him to be a bust when he's not an all-world, all-pro quarterback.
Yeah. I'd be curious to know, and if I knew this one was coming, I would have done a little bit more preparation. But just look at former second-round quarterbacks. Like Jordan Love was taken in the first round.
Yeah.
He hasn't played yet.
So we don't know.
You got the cat from San Francisco who missed his whole first year as a starter with an injury.
It's quarterbacks really either they're like top 10 picks or the best one, like the good ones are like first round picks, like Peyton Manning, or they're like end of the draft, the Tom Brady's, the
pick 199,
like the way down there picks, right?
Yeah, I just think that it's much harder for him to be considered a bust when he's picked in the second round.
Sure, that's probably fair.
I mean, do you consider Malik Willis a bust?
So, like, I think depends on your definition
third
of
round
bust. I mean, yeah, he's like, I don't think he's an NFL quarterback, but he wasn't drafted high enough, I guess, to be considered a bust by definition. But maybe more like if you're an early draft pick, you're a bust. If it's later, you're just a miss or a flop or something like that. But like
there's got to be risks there. You've got to take a risk and then the risk not pay off. I feel like Will Levis in the second round was not a risk at all.
No, it wasn't a risk, but it wasn't the pick that we needed. We needed receiver help, which has been well documented on this podcast as well as the Twitter app. But yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
I guess we'll see.
Yep.
Staying with Kirk, will the Cardinals ever stop breaking my heart? And I'll go first. I hope not.
Well, currently, our teams are squaring off. The Chicago Cubs, who are 17 and 20-something. 30-something.
Not good.
I had it pulled up just a second ago. The St. Louis Cardinals have won 17 games on the year. They are pathetic, and they are losing to your Cubs. The Cardinals currently sit with the worst record in the National League at 13 and 24. Chicago's at 17 and 19. The only teams that have won less games than the St. Louis Cardinals are the Kansas City Royals, the Chicago White Sox, which is kind of surprising to me.
Yeah.
And the absolute hapless, depressing Oakland Athletics,
who've already mailed it in, and it's not even June yet.
I mean, they've mailed it in so hard that their announcer assumed nobody was watching and dropped the N-word.
Dropped a racial slur on national, and the other guy didn't even blink.
Yeah, he just dropped a hard R right there on.
And the other guy just sat there holding his mic.
Like, good point, Bob. So,
speaking of the A's, have you seen their stadium that they're proposing in Vegas?
No, but I've seen their stadium that they're in Oakland, and if they dropped a bomb on it, it would kill tens of people.
Yeah, they I saw today on earlier today on Twitter, there was a video, and there was more security guards and ushers than fans.
And good for the fans. I wouldn't be there either.
No. And we're just rewarding bad ownership. It's not going to change a ton with you keep the same owners and moving out there. They don't spend any money when they move to Vegas, but their stadium will be nice, although confusing because it's built on the old side of the Tropicana in Vegas. And when I think Tropicana, I think Tampa Rays.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of.
Right. So it'll be confusing. And then they've got this roof. You'll need to look it up. And our listeners, you should look it up. I don't know if it's an open lit roof, if it's a mirror, if it's like pixelated, but it looks like a starry night. Good luck on a routine pop up with that thing because the picture they had, it looks kind of like purplish. And so, again, good luck trying to field a routine pop fly on that thing.
Yeah, that's the last thing you want to do is to put sparklies in the skyline.
Yeah. So again, listeners, if you haven't looked it up, look up the drawings. The outside looks incredible. It's got a big ball for the dome in the middle. It looks awesome, but on the inside,
it's stupid.
It's like,
why would you make the dome a big baseball?
I know.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, they're trying to be all super trendy, but yeah, back to the original question at hand. No, and it's wild because you've got Nolan Arenado, you've got Paul Goldschmidt, you've got some talent there, but just not piecing it together this year for whatever reason. Two of the better hitters in the league, particularly in Paul Goldschmidt, but
the reigning NL MVP.
Yeah.
And what's strange to me is it feels like they are fighting so hard, like almost too hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like when the boxer gets up there and they get hit a few times, and instead of countering, they just close their eyes and start swinging their fists,
Yeah.
And so, they have pulled Wilson Contreras and put him in the DH/outfield role, which is stupid because he was handpicked by Yachty to be his replacement, but reports came out that he wasn't doing a good job calling pitches and didn't have a good feel for the game.
He struggled with that in Chicago. He didn't call a ton of pitches. They were relayed into him.
Right. But then all the pitchers backed him up when it came out that they were making the move to put him at DH. All the pitchers came out and said, well, you need to blame us. We're not doing very good. We're not executing, And so for a guy that just showed up first year on the team, and even Jack Flaherty came out, who is our ace, who has also always had problems with some injuries. He came out and he said, look at what Dexter Fowler did, or Marcelo Zuna, or all these free agents that we've got. Even Arenado and Goldschmidt, their first year here, they struggled. It's a new team. It's a new environment. And sometimes it takes a year to get adjusted and to just kind of wreck his whole aura, his whole confidence in the first month and a half of the season seems questionable to me.
Because he was a great defensive catcher in Chicago. He had his laser arm. I mean, he, no Yadier Molina, but he was a great, great catcher.
And there is no Yadier Molina. And that's what I made the comment to one of my buddies at work today who's a Cardinals fan. Like, I hope that they're not grading him on the Yadier Molina scale because that's not fair to anybody.
Yeah. That's like following up like Bear Bryant or Joe Namath or Peyton Manning. Like, you're not going to live up to that hype.
Disagree. T. Martin won a national championship.
That's fair. Well, with the rest of Peyton's team. That's fair.
Peyton didn't do it.
That's right. All right. So non-sports related from Kirk. How did we figure out there was no oxygen in space?
Well, this is in the history books. Have you not read it?
Well, it was just done in a lot in Hollywood, right?
No, that's not what I was referring to.
Oh.
No, before Neil Armstrong, they sent another man to the moon, and he took his helmet off and died. And they're like, oh, crap, we got to fix this. And so that's when they came up with the helmets. Actually, when Sputnik went up with the monkey in it,
that was a monkey.
Found out. Yeah,
it was a monkey that went up there and couldn't breathe. And like, well, he can't breathe. I can't breathe. We need to wear these helmets.
What would PETA have done if they were around back in the day? Like, you sent a monkey in a spaceship with no... it was a one-way ticket, and everybody knew it. And they just threw a monkey in there for no apparent reason whatsoever.
Just because they're the Russians and they can.
Yeah.
They're just mean.
Awesome.
Speaking of PETA, have you seen some of the billboards in this? They're in this war with this town in Maryland. Have you seen this?
No.
So they put up this town in Maryland, it was a restaurant, put up a billboard with a blue crab on it because they're known for their soft shell and blue crab up there. And I forget what the original one said. And PETA's put up one next to it that said, like, this is not food or whatever. So they put one back up and the crab had Old Bay all over it. And it's like, that's better. Like, it's this billboard war going on in Maryland between PETA and some restaurant. I'm here for it.
always laugh at the billboard that PETA put up, and it has in a row, it's got a cat, a few dogs, another cat, a few dogs, a bunny rabbit, a horse, and then a chicken, and a cow, and a pig, and another cow, and another chicken. And it says, animals want to live. Where do you draw the line between pet and food? And somebody got up there and spray painted a line in between the horse and the chicken. Said right about here.
Yeah. I like that. And then they'll put on their social media like a picture of like a cute little pig or a deer. It's like, how can you eat these innocent creatures? And some old redneck puts on there like, are you looking for recipes or is this rhetorical?
Yeah, like this. You put in the pan, little butter.
Listen, it's no secret. I grew up a bit of redneck. It is what it is. And I had a T-shirt when I was a kid, and it had a picture of a deer, duck, and turkey on it. And it said, "There's a place for all God's creatures," right next to the taters and gravy.
Right. That's true.
And did Mississippi no favors with that comment. So moving right along, back to your bride, Miss Haley Gann. What belongs in or on popcorn?
I'm a simple man. Butter. All the butter you can fit in it.
Do you do the butter at the movie theaters?
Yes. Extra butter. What do you do?
I just take it out of the tub and eat it.
But I mean, there's butter on the popcorn.
Well, sure, but I don't ask them like to take that off. But like I'm talking about, do you go over and like pump that synthetic butter all over?
Oh, they don't have that at the Malcolm Corinth anymore.
Oh, gotcha.
No, it's straight up, but it's buttery, which is what I like.
And I'm good with that. Yeah.
And Haley, Haley and the kids when we do a movie night, they want to go get some M&Ms and throw some M&Ms in there, and
that's great.
I have no problem. But I'm eating the popcorn, and then at the bottom of the bowl are all the M&Ms. Then I'm eating the M&Ms. Like I'm not whole handfuls popcorn and M&Ms.
See, that's a pretty good move because that chocolate gets a little melty and soft. You pop that in, and it's pretty tasty, man.
Yeah, a little salty,
a little sweet.
Yeah, it's good, but I'm not. It's not trail mix for me. I'm eating one at a time. Not getting a handful.
I've tried some of those fancy seasoning, like the cheese and the ranch, and that doesn't do much for me.
None of them are as good as just. I've told Haley. This is a question I'll pose to you, just real quick, off the top of your head. I'm snobby about it. Just a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to popcorn, if we buy popcorn, I want the movie theater butter lovers, whatever it is. Just 100%. Butter explosion.
Same one.
And peanut butter. Do not get me anything other than Jif. It can be creamy or crunchy.
Yes.
But don't give me almond butter. Don't give me, cocoa butter, whatever.
And don't give me the Great Value or the Kroger brand. Like I want Jif peanut butter, and I want the biggest thing you can get. I think I've got the all natural creamy right now. I go back and forth like you. I want crunchy, creamy. I mix it up. I don't not just discriminating on that.
But see, I don't even want the all natural. I want just the
blue
Jif
lid
peanut butter.
Or red lid.
The red lid.
Yeah.
The blue lid is the crunchy.
That's right.
I don't want the organic. I don't want the gluten-free. They don't have the same. They don't stick to the roof of my mouth like I like
the
it.
The natural does. The Jif natural does. Because some of those other ones that get separated and I don't want to work for my peanut butter. I want to buy it already mixed. Like you see the ones got the oil on top. It's like mix before you enjoy. I'm like, no. I'm paying you to do that. I'm paying you to do that.
Like Ted Lasso says, just leave the lid off the peanut butter and stick your finger in it. That's what I want to do.
If you look at my peanut butter right now, it doesn't have knife marks from making sandwiches. It's got spoon marks from taking bites out.
Yeah. Sometimes I slice up an apple and use my apple as the vehicle to get the peanut butter to my mouth.
Yeah, I mean, there are other vehicles. Vanilla wafers, apples, different things, spoons, fingers,
Ritz crackers, another number 2 for me.
Solid choice.
I ate a peanut butter and banana sandwich for lunch today, and you cannot beat it.
I had my pre-workout today before the gym was a peanut butter jelly sandwich, and it's hard to beat.
Yeah. Do you, on peanut butter and banana, do you slice your bananas or do you mix it all together?
So I sliced mine lengthwise and put it on the sandwich.
No, that's not the way Elvis would like.
Well, Elvis would fry his too, right?
I smush it all together. However, for peanut butter and jelly, I want one side of each. I don't mix that together. I know it's a little bit of a paradox there.
Yes.
But that's what I believe the way the Lord intends it to be.
There you go. All right, next up, get back into sports. What do you think about the Lakers killing the Warriors right now? I think it's a prime example of what we talked about on this podcast. Like, I think the Lakers did just what they needed to do to get into the playoffs, and then they got to the playoffs and they turned it on. and they finally gelled. Because you think about it, they were a brand new team after the trade deadline, and they got better and better and better. They got to the playoffs. They turned it on. You're getting an every other game 30 piece from Anthony Davis. LeBron is playing great basketball. You've got role players stepping up, and Rui and Austin Reeves. And speaking of, did you see what Austin Reeves told LeBron the other day?
No, I didn't.
He told him it resurfaced a Facebook post to him saying, why doesn't Kobe ever call LeBron? Because no rings. And he's like, I was hating on you back in 2012, just so you know. And LeBron said, it's okay, little brother.
I mean, I'm stunned. I'll be honest with you. I watched the Grizzlies play 6 games against the Lakers. I knew the Lakers were good. And I knew that Golden State was flawed, but that core has got 4 rings together.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm stunned. And I'm not saying it's over.
No.
But I would bet that, and obviously Vegas agrees, I would bet the farm on the Lakers right now, just because I think it's hard to beat any team 3 times in a row. Mm-hmm. However, to me, the bigger story has been Golden State. Yeah. I mean, they had a chance to tie that game, and they turned the ball over and got the ball back, turned the ball over again. It's like they're not playing together. They're not playing that team basketball, and they've always had a little bit of a problem turning it over. Yeah. But when it matters, they turn it up, and they can't find that next level against this team.
Right, and Jordan Poole got his bag and checked out. He has been non-existent in the playoffs. Draymond has not been playing very well either, and I don't know if you saw, but they posted in 2016, I guess it was, when LeBron was with the Cavs, they ran that same little play that they tried to run the other night, and it worked. And Clay hit that corner 3 to put him ahead for good. And they tried that play the other night, and LeBron saw it coming and put somebody on Clay in the corner, and that's when Draymond threw it to Anthony Davis.
Right. You know what's funny about that, and like I said, I give credit to the people I heard it from, Chris Vernon. That's called a hammer screen.
Right, yeah.
Okay? That screen is named after a former player who used to play in the NBA, Darvin Ham, the coach of the Lakers. Yeah. Golden State, with the game on the line, ran a screen, an action screen called the hammer screen against Darvin Ham's team. And that play encapsulates what LeBron is now. Mm-hmm. He is the smartest player on the basketball court. He's always been the freak athlete, the biggest, the strongest, the fastest. He's too big for the guards. He's too fast for the big guys. He is the greatest player of our generation. There is no doubt about it. But he is 38 years old now. And the most astonishing part for me, the most amazing part of watching LeBron is how he's aged into a different era, and how he's taken his, he gets tired easy, and he is able to affect the game the same amount, but in a different role. And it's incredible to watch him call out that defensive play while it was happening, and that he's got the gravitas in that locker room. Obviously, he's LeBron, but that Jared Vanderbilt just said, screw it. Okay. I don't know what I was supposed to do, but LeBron's telling me to go here. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go. Work, it's incredible.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Maybe not the best player of my generation. I grew up watching Michael Jordan, but it's like having a second coach on the floor, because like Darvin Ham sees one thing from the sideline, and then LeBron's in the heat, and that's the big thing. Not only is he executing defense, but he's calling out, hey, they're doing this, go over there. It's like having like Ray Lewis all over, like same thing in the NFL. Like they know exactly what's coming. They get their guys in the right position. Having 2 coaches is a stark advantage for the Lakers, and one that's obviously serving them well against a flawed Golden State team.
And I mean, there are smart basketball players all over the NBA.
Yeah.
Steph Curry is a smart basketball player.
High IQ players all over the place.
And they're high IQ players that are not winners per se. They can't. But LeBron is both.
Yeah.
And Anthony Davis, the whole series, we said it going into it, the series depends on Anthony Davis, and he's taken 2 games off, and they just happened to win one of them by accident,
Yeah.
And so, if I think that Golden State wins tonight at home in Game 5. This series is playing out exactly like the Grizzlies series, if you haven't noticed.
Yeah.
The Lakers have stolen Game 1 on the road, and then lost Game 2, won both games at their place, Game 3 and 4, And it's all going to come down to, I think Golden State wins tonight, and it comes down to having to win a Game 6 on the road.
Yeah.
The Lakers humiliated the Grizzlies at Game 6 on the road, and we'll got to see what Golden State will do.
See if they can show up on their home court. And Golden State usually plays pretty well at home. The place gets loud. I think they win tonight. 10 o'clock tip for those of you who want to stay up on the East Coast. 9 o'clock in the West. We do have one final in the Central Time. We do have one final. The Knicks beat the Heat tonight, 112-103 to draw that series to 3 games to 2.
Yeah. And, real quick fun fact about Golden State is if they lose this series, it will be the first series that Steve Kerr has lost in the playoffs to a Western Conference team.
Oh, wow.
They've only lost in the finals.
Yeah.
So, you got 4 rings.
And it was to LeBron.
You lost a finals to LeBron. And, did they lose the finals to anyone else?
No,
because
they've only lost that one time.
They played LeBron like 3 times in a row, and they won. They bookended it. So, 1-2 beat the Celtics last year. So, yeah. So, I think LeBron gets it done though.
Yeah, I agree. I think we get a Nuggets Lakers Western Conference final, but we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. Next up, more of a statement. Haley misunderstood the assignment on this one. More of a statement. Women's college softball is on, and it's better than you think.
I agree that it's better than I think. I give it the proper credit. My problem is just time in the day.
Yeah.
And there's things that I like more. I did sit down and watch part. So last Saturday, Haley was leading leading worship at a women's conference outside Tupelo. So me and the baby and Braxton stayed at home. And so as I was putting the baby down for a nap, I got in the rocking chair and turned on TV. And the only thing on that I cared about watching was Ole Miss softball.
There you go.
And they were playing Alabama. And Alabama is dominant in women's softball. I think they put up the overall record in the series, and it was like 49-12 or something like that. Alabama versus Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And Ole Miss was up by 1 going into the top of the 7th. They were playing at Ole Miss. And with 2 outs, Alabama hit a 2-run home run, and it was over. Yeah. So, it's Ole Miss sports. They break our hearts.
Yeah. Last year Mississippi State had a Cinderella run into the NCAA tournament, made a super regional and got beat by Arizona, but had a great run. This year we're terrible. We're 7-16 in conference. We're not that great this year, but I agree. I love watching the Women's College World Series.
It's a good product.
I'm like you, Drew. There's plenty of other things I'd rather watch as far as regular season games, but I love watching the Women's College World Series. I will watch every game when they get to the finals there. Absolutely love that. And I agree. If you haven't watched the Women's College World Series, at least start there. It's a fun product.
I got into it a few years back. Ole Miss made a run, through the SEC tournament, ended up winning the tournament. A girl named Caitlin Lee was the pitcher. And in softball, you pitch basically every game.
Right.
And she was a firecracker and fun to watch.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
They were scrappy. And they made a run to the Supers, but then they ran up against like Oklahoma or UCLA or one of those powerhouse teams.
Yeah.
That was over. But,
bounced.
It's not – I struggle watching women's college basketball. I've said that on here. I watch too much men's basketball that it just kind of bores me a little bit.
Sure.
And I hate to say that, but I'll just be honest. Softball does not have that same problem for me.
Yeah. Yep. All right, next up. How do you feel about Ole Miss and Mississippi State not making it into the SEC tournament? I'm not surprised. I was hopeful there for a little stretch, but I'm not surprised. As bad as our pitching's been, as bad as just fielding, the wheels on the bus are coming off. I've heard some rumors that there is a chance that Limo might be gone at the end of the year. I don't think that's the move. He fired his assistant coaches. I think he'll get another year, but I think there's some rumors they were kind of waiting to see how some of the other coaches' deals fell and see what they could afford. Now that Purcell and Jans have signed their extensions, there's a chance he could be gone. But anyway, back to the question. I'm disappointed, but not surprised.
I'm obviously surprised. I'm surprised Mississippi State's not in it. You got to think. We're talking the SEC tournament. 12 out of 14 teams make it. The Mississippi team should never miss the SEC tournament.
Absolutely. Baseball runs through the state of Mississippi and the SEC.
Yeah. And
like, I don't know. As bad as our pitching has been, if you'd told me before the year, maybe I'm different. Like I would be surprised before the season. But after watching the first 2 series, I knew, and I said on this podcast, it's going to be a long year because of pitching.
Yeah, well, I mean, sure, if you're asking me right now based on how the season has went, if I'm surprised, well, no, we've sucked. But going into the season, which is, I think, the spirit of the question, I mean, obviously, I thought we were going to be competing for a host spot. I mean, you just won a national title. You returned enough, and you got some transfers that you were excited about.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, the transfers hadn't played horribly.
Yeah.
We just couldn't pitch the ball.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, I'm shocked. I'm stunned. I think it's abhorrent. I still don't think we're as bad as we are. We just don't have the, call it experience. If you want to be nice, call it the guts. If you want to be real, you just don't have that killer instinct to finish a game. You hadn't had it all year. You haven't developed it. And in the SEC where it's competitive and you've got to win close games, you've got to have a killer mindset. You can't be shy about the moment. And that's what this team has been this year.
Yep. Yeah, and we've just lacked killer instinct as well. We can't get out of our own way in the field. The other day against Arkansas on Friday, our pitching showed up. Cade Smith had a phenomenal game, and offense didn't show up. And then the rest of the year, the offense has shown up and pitching hasn't. So it's been a disappointment. But
yeah, like Ole Miss just went to Missouri, with 2 series to go on the year, or 3 series to go in the year, and you're at 16 losses. You've got Missouri, Auburn, and Alabama, which is not a daunting schedule at all. You had to win all of them. And I'm not deluded enough to think, I'm a realist when it comes to Ole Miss. The odds are 1%, but to win every single game. But that's what you had to do, and you blow a 9-2 lead in the Thursday night game of a weekend against Missouri, who came in with the same record you do.
Yep.
You just can't do it. And then you get run ruled on Friday, and then on Saturday in Game 3, you put up a 20 spot, and your catcher hits 4 home runs, and you win by 4. So it just, it's frustrating, and I'm curious. I think it puts Ole Miss in a weird situation because obviously you're not firing Mike Bianco. Unlike Lamona's, Mike Bianco built this program, and then, when his head was in the gallows, he won a national championship.
Won you a title, yeah.
Yeah. And so he's not going anywhere.
No.
Not this year, not next year, not the next year.
Yeah.
And so he's going to have to figure it out, and he's going to have to figure out how to play the game. We've talked about it on this podcast. He's got to figure out how to play the game and to get these players to mesh for 1 year.
Yep.
That's the game now. And so we'll see, but I can tell you it's not going to be acceptable to miss the SEC tournament or the NCAA tournament next year.
Nope, not at all. And that's where we're at with Lamona. So he's missed it back-to-back years. You get 1 shot to fire your assistants. It still may not be enough. There was an interview done by our favorite Mississippi State podcaster, Mr. Steve Robertson.
No, you do not speak his name. I hate Steve Robertson.
Of course you do.
And he did an amazing service for Ole Miss with getting Hugh Freeze fired. But I cannot stand that man.
And the guy just reported the news that was given to him. But
he was hunting through phone records trying to find the demise of Hugh Freeze.
That landed in his lap from an anonymous source. That's well documented. Yeah. But anyway, we'll get into more baseball here in just a little bit. Next up from Haley, why do naps hit different on a school bus?
They don't. First, don't let my wife fool you. She sent that from a school bus on a field trip yesterday.
How do you sleep on that?
You don't, but you got to think. You got to consider the source here.
Yeah.
The source is my wife, who can sleep anywhere. There's not a vehicular seat that she can't sleep in.
I did see something the other day. It said, could you imagine being a little kid? It must be terrifying to fall asleep in your house and then you wake up in Walmart.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, disagree. They don't hit different on school buses because they don't hit it
at all. Yeah.
What's
Much
the best?
like a Mississippi State offense.
Hey, But we normally hit, man. It's not the offense except for Friday night.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's the best Wi-Fi name you've ever seen? I had one of my previous neighbors was Stop Stealing the Wi-Fi. I don't know if that was just a joke or if it was a thing. And then my current one is Dunder Mifflin, and my password is This is Pam.
Oh, that's good. I when I was in college, I made my Wi-Fi password on the fridge. And so when people would ask me what my Wi-Fi password was, I'd say on the fridge, and they would go to the fridge looking for a piece of paper that had the Wi-Fi password on it. And I just wouldn't say anything. So they'd search forever, and they're like, "What's the Wi-Fi password?" I said, "On the fridge." And they're like, "It's not on the fridge." And I was like, "No,
it is actually.
It is on the fridge."
That's funny. We got 3 more. This is an obvious one, and if you think different, you're a communist. But Haley says, "Does toilet paper go over or does it come under?"
It goes over.
It goes over. The patent says it goes over, so it goes over. Next question.
I don't have to reach for it if it's under. No. If it's over.
No, and it tears and funky. It's not. No, absolutely, always goes over.
Yeah.
One more from Haley, and then we got
Haley. She just sets it down on the closest flat surface. That's what she does.
There it is. Then what would you call a male ladybug?
A bug.
Just a fella bug? Or
yeah.
Just a bug?
Yeah.
A male ladybug, just a bug.
Yeah.
That red and black bug over there.
Yeah. Is there a difference?
How can you tell?
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm not looking at a ladybug close enough to figure it out.
Don't know that I could.
Nope. And then lastly, from my buddy Caleb Coblentz here in Myrtle Beach, are aliens real?
That depends on what you define as an alien. I'm not crazy enough to think that there's not some kind of amoeba out there.
Mm-hmm.
But
are there little green people running around in spaceships?
Yeah, I don't know that there's an advanced civilization out there.
There's been a lot more documentation released by the U.S. government that they've been finding UFOs for years and years and years and releasing footage of it. But just because it's a UFO doesn't mean it's a little green alien, right?
Right.
So I'm like,
if I'm supposed to trust grainy footage from the 1960s video camera, then you're going to have to give me some other, proof.
Yeah. Especially, no offense to our good buddy and esteemed colleague on the podcast, Aaron Ives, from some backwoods family in Kentucky that's got 12 teeth amongst 3 generations, saying, "I seen an alien in the back pasture."
Yeah. If you want to know what a redneck is, watch the local news.
That's it. James Gregory had a great bit, the comedian, about that. Like, why do they always pick the redneckiest person to do those interviews? They go straight to the trailer park when there's been a tornado and pick the most redneck person they can.
I always laugh when the clip comes out of them interviewing people in line at the gas station to buy Powerball tickets,
Yeah.
And the one guy, they said, "What are you going to do if you win the Powerball?" And he says, "Cocaine and hookers."
Absolutely. My boy.
So,
all right. That's thanks again. Of course,
yeah. And she's just like, "And back to you, Bob."
That's it. What do you say to that, right?
Yeah.
My favorite will always be, it was in Byhalia, Mississippi, not too far from you there, heading towards Memphis. They're interviewing this girl about this robbery at the gas station, and she's like the high school age girl. She's doing the interview, and all of a sudden she goes, "Whew, I gotta pee." And she's the interviewer's like, "Okay," and she goes, "I'm peeing."
Oh no!
And she's like, "I just peed my pants." And the lady's like, "And back to you in the studio."
Did you see where a person in Corinth, Mississippi, won $1 million on the lottery, and they've yet to come forward and claim it?
I don't think, is Tennessee a state that you have to disclose?
It's Mississippi. They won the Mississippi lottery. Yeah.
Well, how about that?
Yeah, $1 million. But as of last reporting, nobody has claimed it.
Some states you can stay anonymous, but I don't know.
But they still claim it, though.
Right.
This has not been claimed.
Oh, gotcha. When a few years ago, 2019, I guess, there was a Mega Millions that got up to like 400 or 500 million, and somebody in South Carolina won it. And I woke up to 19 text messages and 3 missed calls. Like, I looked at my phone. I'm like, so kind of dug deeper, and I didn't even have a single number right, but it weren't me.
It weren't me.
But yeah,
what else you got for us, Buckets?
That's it. That's all the questions from our fans. Thanks for participating, guys. I'll keep posting those. Those seem to be winners. We enjoy them at least. We appreciate y'all asking questions. And please, if you're listening, when I post those, give us your best question, man. We won't shy away from it. We are a PG-ish podcast, but otherwise we'll answer your questions and let you know our thoughts about life's pressing issues.
We are PG with some innuendos.
Mm-hmm. So I said PG-ish.
yeah. That's
no direct derogatory humor, but definitely some inferred.
Yeah, that's gonna have to be our bio. Like PG with some innuendos.
That's it.
We didn't say it, but you got there.
But you got there. It's like when you go watch a little kid movie like Shrek or whatever. Like they got all the little kid humors, but they're these quick one-liners that you know are for the adults there with their kids.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So first up, as we dive into sports a little bit, the All NBA team was released yesterday, today. And there were some obvious names that were left off. I found some interesting choices on the first team. Have you seen the lists?
I've seen it. I remember some names, but yeah.
I'll roll through them. We'll start with the first team. We'll kind of roll through them, and then we'll get your thoughts, and we'll kind of talk about that for a little bit. Your 2022-2023 All NBA teams. First team is Giannis Antetokounmpo.
No brainer.
Bucks, no brainer. Jason Tatum from the C's.
No brainer.
Joel Embiid.
No brainer.
Your NBA MVP of flops and of the league.
Yeah. Bad look.
I don't think there's been a more hated MVP recently, but
disagree. I hated James Harden much more.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. I forgot about that. Definitely not Jokic, but then Luka Doncic from the Mavs.
Oh, I mean, he's a no-brainer to me. I mean, you don't let the record fool you. He's incredible.
See, and that's the thing. Like and you may disagree with me on this, and that's fine. But I value a guy that's important to a good team, to a team that makes the playoffs. That is a good player on a good team. And Luka is.
Well, I mean,
they didn't make the playoffs. And I'll say there was a little skinny number 12 for the Memphis Grizzlies that had much better stats this year that I thought maybe been more deserving.
Well, considering skinny number 12, he did not get the votes because he brandished a gun in a nightclub. And that was the tiebreaker.
Obvious reason he wasn't on this list, and it cost him about $40 million.
Yeah. Regarding Luka, he's incredible. When it was his team, he had no help.
Mm-hmm.
And then they sent what help he did have for
Brooklyn.
Kyrie Irving, and they went from the 5th or 6th seed to out of the playoffs. So there's a clear line of a line in the sand that was drawn in that series. Like you can draw a line on the schedule and say this is when Kyrie got there, and this is when Kyrie is the killer of all things good when it comes to basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I don't hold that against Luka, nor should you. He's incredible.
Yeah. No,
he should be. You can say that maybe he shouldn't have been first team.
That's it. That's my thing. Maybe there's some guy. There's one guy on the second team specifically that that Donovan Mitchell I thought maybe was a little bit more deserving, but
that's fair.
Luka Doncic is fine. He's a great player. I just on the first team, I have a hard time with guys that aren't in the playoffs, that aren't still playing.
Right.
And maybe that's just personal, but.
Well, I mean, you want Ja in there, so.
Yeah. Well, that made the playoffs that were playing. That played past the end of April. And then finally, SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from your Oklahoma City Thunder was a first time All NBA selection. Good for SGA.
And he deserved that.
He had a great year.
I was glad to see him do it. And honestly, I'm glad to see that voters did not necessarily just pick the best player off the best team. Like you had to go watch SGA. And if you watch SGA this year, he was absolutely phenomenal. He deserved first team. I figured he would get second or third team just because they were in the play-in. They didn't make it to the playoffs, whatever. Without him, that team is absolute garbage.
Garbage.
With him, they're going to be dangerous going forward.
Yeah, if Chet can get healthy and they can keep that core together, they'll be great. But SGA had a great year, so good on him for his first team All-NBA selection. Second team is full of familiar names: Steph Curry, Donovan Mitchell, Jimmy Buckets, Jokic, and Jaylen Brown were your second team All NBA players. No issues with any of those guys.
Yeah, I don't have an
hopefully
issue with that.
possible future Grizz, Jaylen Brown.
Fingers crossed. You know, two of my favorite players of all time are Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry.
You got one out of two.
Well, I love watching Steph Curry. He's fun to watch. I hate the Golden State Warriors, so yes, I can't have my cake and eat it too.
No, because of that, I'm not a Steph Curry fan. Anyway.
Steph Curry got a legacy vote here. I mean, he was
great.
His
best year. He was great, but it wasn't his best
great. Year. He just didn't play as many games. You know, same way, and you'll get there. There was a couple honorary NBA in the
third team. I'll go ahead. Yeah, I mean, Damian Lillard, De'Aaron Fox, which was a great call. LeBron James, Julius Randle, and Domantas Sabonis from Sacramento was your third team.
Yeah, so LeBron was incredible. He deserved to be on it. Damian Lillard was an honorary pick. I mean, he didn't play a lot of games, but man, when he was playing, he was incredible.
I mean, I was in Memphis when at the end of the first quarter he had like 6 points, and at the start of the third at the midway through the third quarter he had 36, and it just happened like that.
Well, so with all these teams now, it'd be interesting to look at going forward. You know, the rules change next year. Mm-hmm. So first, they're going positionless with all NBA. So it'll be the top 5 vote getters, regardless of position. So in years past, you know, Jokic has always been first team and Embiid's always been second team, even though it's argument could be made they were the 2 best players in basketball, but they only allow for 1 center position.
Right.
Now it's just the top 5 vote getters, which not a real big fan of, but whatever.
I agree.
You look at guys like De'Aaron Fox, who's third team. He could have easily been the 3rd best guard, you know, in this top NBA, all NBA. You know, De'Aaron Fox had an incredible year.
Sabonis was a walking double-double this year. Had a great year. So good on him for making third team.
You know, maybe he's the center. So you only get 3 centers in the all NBA teams. Mm-hmm. And so maybe Sabonis gets first team if you allow 3 centers to they're in the top 5 vote getters, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Looking at the list, I don't think there's any glaring omissions. I know what happened with Ja. I think that is an omission, but I get it.
But understandably why. And it cost him it's the difference in what, $235 million and $195 million in his contract, because if he was an all NBA, then he's eligible for the Supermax, and now he's just eligible for the max. So the Grizz now have $40 million in cap space to play with.
Well, and what's interesting about this, Bobby Marks tweeted out, you know that the NBA has these Supermax designations that kick in an extra level if you make an all NBA team. Because Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum both made all NBA teams, Jason Tatum's eligible to sign a 5-year, $318 million contract now.
Man.
And Jaylen Brown is eligible for a 5-year, $295 million contract. That is, by quick math, what is 300 divided by 5 is 60 million?
Yeah. Man.
Fit that into your underneath the luxury tax.
I got 4 first-round draft picks and a
Brandon Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's not going to get Jaylen Brown. I'll tell you that right now.
It's going to take everybody.
Yeah. So, Grizzlies front office may have been hoping that he did not make that. You know.
Yeah. Maybe get him.
But I think that was a pipe dream, anyways.
Absolutely, he's not one that we're really gonna be able to get without having to give up one of the big 3. And I'm not interested as much as that would be an upgrade. I'm not interested in giving up a Desmond Bane for Jaylen Brown.
I'd give up Desmond Bane.
So I was gonna ask that: is there anyone you would trade of the big 3 to get a Jaylen Brown?
Only him, but it would have to be a sweet deal outside of him. You know?
I wouldn't want to give up all of our first round picks. Like there'd have to be Dez, maybe 1 or 2, and Tyus and John, or offload like Conchar or Santi or something like that.
Yeah, you've got to take Dylan Brooks in a sign and trade.
Yeah, there you go. Like that's your punishment.
Yeah. But I don't think that'll happen. They're not getting rid of Desmond Bain, and nor should they. I don't.
No.
You know,
We're a big chemistry team. We're all about chemistry. We don't want to mess that up.
Yeah.
But hey, speaking of changing teams, I know you wanted to talk about Hunter Davidson for a minute, the kid from Michigan that's transferring to Kansas.
Well, I just thought his comments were interesting, and this isn't a topic that we'll spend a lot of time on. Did you see it?
Yes, I saw what he said.
Yeah, so basically Hunter Davidson, who was all NCAA contributor for Michigan this year, a legacy guy. His daddy played there. Has 2 years left remaining there, and he is one of those guys that's going to be a college player. He doesn't really translate to the pros. One of those kind of, slow-footed centers that really make a huge impact in college but don't really translate. Left Michigan and announced he was going to Kansas, and when asked why he chose Kansas, he just admitted it, and I respected it. It was money. And he, to all of his detractors, he said, all y'all would leave y'all's job for a $10,000 pay raise. And that's what I did. And I respect it.
It was a lot more than $10,000 though. He is on record with saying that I never got more than 6 figures in Michigan. So he's getting a bag in Kansas. And you're right. He's a slow-footed center like most Big Ten centers as of late. Not going to make a big splash in the NBA, but going to get some money in an NIL deal by transferring to Kansas. And the likelihood of getting a national championship is significantly higher playing for Bill Self than it is playing for Juwan Howard.
Yeah, and you look at the other centers of his ilk, that's currently in the NCAA right now. Oscar Tshiebwe at Kentucky, Drew Timme at Gonzaga. There's a reason why they didn't go pro.
Yeah,
it's because they're making more money in college than they could make overseas or in the G League or, the 15th man on a roster.
Yeah. And that's why Timmy's going into his 7th year of eligibility because of COVID and injury extensions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So props to him.
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
That's all I wanted to say. I didn't know if you had a blistering take that for like some kind of respect the game and play.
No, I thought it was. I've said on this podcast many times, man, get your bag while you can. I am pro. Like I understand the moves of the Freddie Freemans and stuff of the world. Like you've got a short window. We documented this. You got a short window to make your money, and if you see that in college, go get it, man. With this NIL deal, I'm all for it.
Right,
all for it. We'll quickly touch on the NBA playoffs, and we got a little college baseball. I do want to talk about, I sent you that earlier about college baseball, the SEC record against other conferences. I do want to get to that here in just a little bit. But as stated earlier, the Knicks and Heat are now 3-2 Miami. Jimmy Buckets has had a phenomenal playoff series. And it was a cool video of him the other day. The Heat were celebrating that last win that put them up 3-1. It was a close game. The Heat kind of won late. Pulled away 109, 101 to go up 3-1, and all, Bam was out there leading a dance. They were all dancing around, and if you look in the background, there's Jimmy Buckets just drinking his water and watching. Like we still got work to do.
Yeah, I love Jimmy Butler.
Same.
He is the prototypical season don't matter until playoffs get here. It's love it or hate it. That's how he is. And when playoffs get here, you better pack a lunch, my friend.
You better buckle up because Jimmy Butler's coming.
he hits that 6th gear, and he is a bowling ball of butcher knives when it comes to the NBA playoffs. Yeah. They lost tonight. The Knicks got them tonight. Like I said, with the 3-1 series regarding the Grizzlies, and we talked about it in the Lakers-Warriors series. Game 5 typically goes to the home team. It's the, for the traveling team, the team that's up 3-1, you kind of tend to let your foot off the gas and rest up because you can win it all at home in Game 6. And the Heat put up a fight. I mean, that's the one thing I love about the Heat is Heat culture is real.
Mm-hmm.
For decades, everybody's like, you want to be the Spurs. You want to be the Spurs. You want to be the way R.C. Buford built the team and Popovich coached the team and the culture there, how they share the basketball. You can say the same thing about Golden State in their prime. I don't think there's a team that I'm more envious of their playing style than the Heat.
Pat Riley does a great job managing that team. Eric Spoelstra was on his way out at one point when LeBron was there, and now is just like the
He's a genius, man.
Yeah, he's such a good coach, man. Such a good coach. He's got that team prepared year in and year out. I mean, you're getting productive minutes out of Udonis Haslem when he's 40-something years old at the end of games. Like, that's Heat culture, man. And they're a good team. They're not a team that you want to run into. I think they get it done in Game 6. But
I mean, we take pride as Grizzlies fans in how well they develop and draft. I mean, you look at guys like Bane, who was taken 30, and Santi Aldama, who was taken with the 30th pick. If you look at that Heat roster and the people that are undrafted that are contributing, Jimmy Butler was picked 30. Okay. Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, both undrafted, highly productive minutes, both in the starting lineup tonight.
Yeah.
Duncan Robinson, undrafted. Caleb Martin, which I don't remember if he was drafted or not. If he was late. Yeah, Haywood Highsmith, whoever that is, got some minutes tonight. There's only 3 guys that didn't play, and that was UD and their rookie Nikola Jovic. And Omer Yurtseven, who whoever, I don't know what he is, but anyways, that's the team that I like. That's the culture. If you're talking about Grizzlies want to build a culture, that's the kind of culture I want. Nasty, gritty. Teams don't want to play us culture.
No. Yeah, absolutely. But tonight was the Jalen Brunson show, and how Dallas let him get away, man. He had 38 tonight.
It's a fireable offense.
Yeah, like that guy he's a stud. And let him develop another year and let him play beside Luka. Then you could have saved Spencer Dinwiddie and not got rid of some of those great defenders. And maybe Dallas is in some of these series now. I think they're a much better team.
They were in the Western Conference Finals last year.
That's it, man.
And the deal was done at that point. They didn't realize what they had.
No, 100%. And that's a miss on scouting.
Yeah, they can yell tampering all they want to. The truth of the matter is yes, they were tampering.
Sure.
The New York Knicks had Jalen Brunson's father on staff, and their GM was Jalen Brunson's father's best man. He's Jalen Brunson's godfather. Yes, there was tampering, but what are you going to do if you go to Christmas together every year and your godfather is the GM of the Knicks? Like that's not tampering. The problem is you did not give him a contract when he wanted the contract. When he was telling you, I need more money, I'm better than what you think, and you say, I think you're cheaper than what you think, well, then you've got to lay in your bed at that point.
And now he's playing meaningful basketball in May, dropping 38 against the Heat. And that's what I was going to say. Like, you left that door open for tampering. You left that door open by not giving him a contract. And so that's on you, Mark Cuban, letting that guy walk. That's a major miss.
You let the wolves in the hen house. I mean, you left that door open by not locking up what you had. You look around, you say, I've got Luka, I can draw talent, and maybe you can. But what you just found is you've got a Hall of Fame point guard now you traded everything, you sold your literal soul to, and he has ruined another franchise.
After you had
all because you didn't pay the guy you drafted.
Who's getting big money, big minutes, and big buckets. He had 38 tonight. Good on Jalen Brunson. 38-9. What a great – and it was on 12 of 22 shooting. Very efficient night. Like, just a great game.
He is such a change-up when it comes to the NBA basketball. Jalen Brunson is a below-average height, but he is a mid-range master. He can get any shot he wants. He is the most frustrating person to play against in the NBA that I've watched the Grizzlies play this year.
He just creates.
It was so frustrating because that's what, just like you said, he is creating space. He can get whatever shot he wants at any time, and it don't matter who's guarding him. We probably need to talk about the all defensive teams here for a second too, but our boy Dylan Brooks made the second team all defense this year. He couldn't do anything about it.
No,
I mean nobody could.
No.
Jalen Brunson gets what Jalen Brunson wants.
Yep. Yeah. Speaking of, real quick shout out, absolutely. The All NBA defensive team featured 2 Memphis Grizzlies, the obvious choice in Jaren Jackson Jr. as the headliner on the first team. Let's see, pulling up right here. First team was Alex Caruso from the Chicago Bulls, very well deserved. He guy's a menace. Very, very great, a great defender. Drew Holiday, Jaren Jackson Jr., Brooke Lopez, and Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley got some traction towards the end of the year for Defensive Player of the Year, but other than that, I think they got it right. Those are some of the best defenders in the league.
Yeah, I think they got it right. I think that Evan Mobley probably deserved it because they kind of do it positionally for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they went 3 centers, or considered Jaren and Mobley forwards.
Brooks probably the true center. Jaren's probably the 3. Evan Mobley as the 4. You got Drew Holiday as a 2, and Caruso as a 1.
I liked Caruso.
That's a great pick.
That's a target that I wish the Grizzlies would go after. If he's one of those, like, make him your backup plan if you dare, but he's a good basketball player.
He's the first Italian American to ever win an NBA award too. A little fun fact for you there.
That's pretty neat.
Good on him. The first team, I think he's a phenomenal basketball player.
Jaren Jackson Jr. did get the most first place votes, which probably should be expected considering he ran away with Defensive Player of the Year. But
despite the smear job in the media, he ran away with a great pick. Absolutely. In the end, second team, Bam Adebayo from the Heat, future Memphis Grizzly, OG Anunoby, former Memphis Grizzly, Dylan Brooks, Draymond, which is a legacy pick, and Derek White from the C's, which was a bit of a surprise. I guess the only thing, his defense is definitely better than his hairline.
Hey, let's not take shots at hairlines, okay? Neither of us can.
Mine's going away too.
Yeah,
but
neither of us have the hairline to insult another man's hairline.
It's just funny.
However, I would say if mine got that bad, I'd shave my head.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, when it's even with your ears, it's time to go.
Yeah. So on the second team, I don't know whether I should have been surprised by Dylan or not, but I was, just because public perception of him ended up not being a great defender, but being a pest, and a loudmouth. And so these votes are taken and tabulated before the postseason starts, so he did benefit from that. And he was a great one-on-one defender. I mean, when you got the opportunity to scheme against him in a 7-game series, you saw his weaknesses, just like you do in the playoffs.
Sure.
Your strengths will be exploited. Your strengths will try to be exploited, and your weaknesses will absolutely be exploited.
Yeah.
And so I was a little bit surprised. I'd be lying if I had a hot take about Derek White, because I just didn't watch a lot of Celtics games because they only play the Grizzlies twice a year in the regular season. Bam, obviously, he's great. And Draymond is obviously great. I mean, he's a legacy, yes, but he's also great.
He's a good defender. I saw a podcast clip from a couple years ago today of Shaq that just made me laugh, because Draymond about 3 years ago, said that in his prime he could take Shaq in his prime, and it's just like, that's incorrect. And I don't care what you say, that's incorrect.
The only way that is true is if he can pick up Shaq from the 3-point line, and Shaq's got to dribble.
Even then, like, all Shaq does is turn up, put his hip in him, and he backs him all the way down. But in the podcast, they asked Shaq, they said, all right, this Warriors team, this is back when they had KD, Steph, Draymond, Clay, against the 0-1 Lakers with you and Kobe that won that title. Who wins?
Right.
And
Kobe,
Shaq's, Shaq's just like, give me the ball. They're like, oh, Draymond Green's guarding you. He's like, that's fine. I'll go for 60. And they said, well, then JaVale McGee comes off the bench and guards you. He goes, oh, then I'll go for 70.
Yeah.
Shaq would dominate. Like, Kobe, notwithstanding, like, sure, some of those guards to give them fits. It's hard to compare eras, but Shaq would absolutely be a menace against that team.
Shaq's the most dominating player that's ever played the game of basketball.
Absolutely. There's just like, you could drop him. He would drop him in the 50s, 60s, 70s, today's NBA, and he would just, because of sheer size and athletic ability at that size, he would just dominate.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I don't really have a problem about the NBA defensive teams.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty fair. I still think Brooke Lopez is overrated, but nerds win.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. Quickly kind of working through the rest of the NBA. We've talked about it a little bit. The 76ers and Celtics play tomorrow night. Sixers are up 3-2. Your NBA MVP, which we talked about a little bit earlier, the flopping Joel Embiid, which says, his excuse was his trainers told him to fall to save his ankles. But it's like, what about your shoulders and elbows and stuff that you're falling on at 7 foot tall? But anyway.
I mean, let's be honest, if I'm just being frank with you, and I like Joel Embiid, although I don't like all the flailing. I can buy that. I mean, the guy missed the first 2 years of his career with knee injuries. I get it. I get what you're saying, but as far as excuses go, that's one I can buy more than some.
I ain't buying it. Not a bit. Miss me with that bull. You know what?
He's 7'2". I mean,
yeah, and that's a long way. You try and catch yourself. That's how you break a wrist. You tear your rotator cuff, and then you're done. And you break a wrist, you're done.
But those aren't as frail as a knee for a 7 foot.
A wrist is one. You think about a little tiny wrist catching the 7 foot frame coming down. Then you get you break your scaphoid bone. There's no blood flow to that area. You have surgery. You're in a cast. You're immobilized. You're missing at least a year. That's a major.
How many times have you ever seen that happen in the NBA? We're talking about common knee injuries that you're avoiding. Knee injuries are the most common injury in the NBA. I'm just saying.
Especially when you watch him flopping and fall. Sure, maybe one or two, he feels the foot and he falls.
He's
but
not
when somebody
falling.
gives him a brush and he goes flying across the court, that's more dangerous for his knee than just jumping up and catching a ball or playing defense.
I will not defend him in the aspect that the way he is falling, in the situation he is falling, he is not bracing himself he's trying to get fouls in those situations. Yeah. But if you're just telling me if it's better to not fight it and risk a knee injury versus fall, okay, that's fine. But you're falling all the time. Yeah. every time.
Yeah.
So I agree with you there.
A hot take for me.
The Celtics absolutely mailed it in a 2-2 series at home.
Yeah.
Gave away home court advantage because they didn't want to play yesterday.
I still think, though, of all the teams that are down, I think the Celtics have the best chance of coming back and winning that series just because they can get hot. They can score a ton. They got a lot of talent. Again, you're right. They absolutely checked out. And if they play like they did in Game 5, this series will be over tomorrow night by 10 o'clock.
They've got problems. They let Atlanta take them to 6 games when they had the opportunity to close them out at home. Yeah. They've messed around here and lost. They lost Game 2 at home when Joel Embiid was out of the game. They mailed in another game at home when they had a chance to go up 3-2. Now they've got to win out. Lost home court advantage. I don't see it, man. Yes, they're the more talented team. Absolutely. They should be the best team in the East.
Mm-hmm.
They should have been. As soon as Milwaukee got beat, they became the prohibitive going away favorite to win the East. And they're acting like they should win the East right now.
Yep. And Vegas has them as a 2.5-point favorite tomorrow night with an 87% chance to win. But ESPN
on the road,
42% chance. Yeah.
They're a road favorite.
Mm-hmm. 2.5 points.
Okay.
Yep. But again, I think they've got the talent to do it. But if they get bounced, there is trouble in paradise. Jaylen Brown, if you're listening to this podcast, come to Memphis.
I bet they regret signing Joe Mazzulla to a long-term contract.
I really think so. I would agree with that. Anyway, moving right along. We've already talked about the Lakers-Warriors for a good bit. I think the Nuggets are going to put away Phoenix. They're a 3-point dog, though. Phoenix is a 3-point favorite. Yes, at Phoenix. Phoenix is a 3-point home favorite. Tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Eastern. Jokic is just so good. He gets whatever he wants. But the difference in that series so far, that what keeps Phoenix in it is, and I can't stand him. I'm on record saying this, but it's Devin Booker, man. He is on fire, averaging 36 points in the playoffs this year. Just cannot miss. He couldn't defend my nephew, though. Ain't no defense, but my boy he's a walking bucket right now.
Well, and what's so perplexing about Phoenix is that Monty Williams may get fired if they lose this series.
Mm-hmm.
They let Jay Crowder walk in the offseason because he wasn't going to be happy with his role.
Right.
They let him walk / he didn't want to play for him anymore. They traded away Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, who are really great role players, to get Kevin Durant. They've lost Chris Paul again. I mean, it's the playoffs. Chris Paul doesn't play.
No.
They have nothing outside of Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. DeAndre Ayton is just
trash.
A coward.
Trash.
You know, he's soft as Charmin. He don't try. He literally doesn't try. You know, those guys it's the most frustrating professional athlete ever is the guy that was blessed with 7'2", built like a goddess, and just doesn't like it. Just doesn't like to play basketball. That's what DeAndre Ayton is, the most frustrating style of athlete of all time, if you can even call him an athlete.
Yeah, my buddy Bowen he hates him so much, just harps on him so much about how bad he is, and he's right. Like the other night when he stood on the baseline and watched that rebound getting tipped around, I was like, what do you want me to do? Like, I don't know. Go get the rebound. You look like your controller died. And then again in the game just the other night, that would have been game 3, game 4, or no, game 5, same thing. Ball's getting tipped around, they're scrumming for the ball, and he takes a step back and watches. Like, you're 7 feet tall. Go influence a play. Go make a friggin' basketball play and get the ball. I'm glad he's not on our team. I'm glad he's somebody else's problem. We don't have to worry about that. But I was talking about it with Bowen too, and I'm curious your take on this. I think, again, Jokic is all world, like an incredible basketball player. He looks super doughy. Doesn't look like a basketball player at all, but he's just a second point guard on the floor. To me, as a Marc Gasol and Memphis Grizzly fan, I think that's what we hoped Marc was going to be, right? And I think Marc had flashes that he could have been that. Marc was a phenomenal facilitator. He was a phenomenal defender, but he was so passive on offense. That's the difference. When the Nuggets need Jokic to take over and win a game, what does he do? He go get you a 40-piece. What would Marc do? Marc would pass. Marc would get passive. And in games against like the Hornets or the Wizards or the Jazz, when they didn't matter, sure, he might go get you 38 and 12. But when the lights were the brightest and we needed Marc the most, I think a lot of Memphis wanted this Jokic that we see, and I think Marc could have done it, but he just never panned out.
I think Jokic is just the most creative basketball player I've ever seen is from a big man. Like, you can't, the comparisons are there if you want to talk about his passing and facilitating and the fact that he's a big, doughy white guy from overseas. But that's really where the comparisons end, because Jokic is a whole nother class of basketball player.
That's what I'm saying.
I love
killer instinct.
Yeah,
he's got that killer instinct that Marc would show little glimmers of, but never really had.
What is interesting is if you look early in that series, so in game 3, so Phoenix won 112-114. Jokic had 30 points, 17 rebounds, and 17 assists.
What a lot, man.
And so Phoenix, and they've come out and said it, like, if Jokic is going to beat us, this is crazy. You don't see this in the NBA for many people. That's how special he is. They want Jokic to beat them by scoring, because if he facilitates, the whole team is better when he facilitates than if he just takes the whole load of it. Yeah. So they let him score as much as he wanted. He had 17 assists in game 3. So they said, all right, fine, score as much as you want to and then see what happens. Well, in game 4, let me see, is this the right one? No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I clicked on game 5 on accident. In game 4, they said, fine, score as much as you want to. He went for 53.
Yeah.
53 and 11.
Yeah.
And to Phoenix's credit, Phoenix won.
Mm-hmm.
In that game that Phoenix won, let's look at DeAndre Ayton's line. He played 27 minutes. He took 6 shots, and he had 8 points, and he was a minus 13 in a 5-point win.
As a former number 1 overall pick.
Yeah. In game 5, the Nuggets win by 16, and DeAndre Ayton was a minus 21. So yeah, DeAndre Ayton's just trash.
He's trash. Bowen sent me a text from Reddit he saw on a Suns Reddit that he follows, and it said, who says no to this trade? DeAndre Ayton to Memphis for Steven Adams and Tyus Jones. And I just said, all of Memphis.
All of them.
All of Memphis says no.
Yeah. You look back as a Grizzlies fan, and we've had a tortured past. All my sports teams, I curse all of them into just mediocrity, and things don't typically go well. The Grizzlies fans need to be thanking the good Lord upstairs for two things: not getting the number one pick in 2018 when they had the worst record, because they would have taken DeAndre Ayton. Instead, we got fourth. Of course, I guess you could say, well, why couldn't we get two and get Luka? That's not the exercise we're playing here.
Nope.
We're blessed with Jaren Jackson Jr. In 2019, we did not get the number one pick because we would have taken Zion Williamson. Instead, we got the 2 pick and got Ja.
It worked out. Too blessed to be stressed.
Right.
But yeah, that's all our NBA talk for tonight. Anything else you want to add to that before we move into a little college baseball? We wrap this show up.
No, that's all I've got on the NBA. Has the Warriors-Lakers game started yet?
Yeah, it has actually.
What's the score here? No, this is a bad pod because it's 52-54 Warriors in the halfway through the second quarter. And for all of you listeners, the game is over, so just go check the score.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So in college baseball news, first of all, we have a new number one team for the first time this year. LSU had been the wire-to-wire number one team until this week's poll was released. And the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, with a record of 39-7, are your new number one ranked baseball team. The SEC still has a super strong showing with LSU at 2, Arkansas at 3, Vandy at 5, South Carolina at 6, Florida at 7. And then Kentucky at 17, Tennessee at 23 has snuck their way back into the top 25. There is a Mississippi team that is represented in the top 25, and it's the Mustard Buzzards from Hattiesburg at 25th with a 32-15 record. Coastal Carolina, right up the road for me, is the number 8 ranked baseball team right now. They took Wake Forest. They took 1 out of 2 from Wake Forest back earlier in the year, one of their 7 losses. But Coastal's a great team, got an opportunity to make a deep run. ECU is 14th at 34-14.
Okay. Well, what I take out of that is that Wake Forest has an incredible record in the ACC this week, and
they
the
hit
SEC
the ball really well.
Kind of eats itself. Right now, LSU is 38-10 overall, so only 1 game worse than Wake Forest. In conference, they are 16-7. They're actually in second place in the conference. Because Arkansas has played and won 1 more game. They're 17-7.
You're welcome, Arkansas fans, for that sweep this weekend.
Yeah. And so, LSU's the best team in the country. I don't care what the polls say.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll get sorted out when it gets to Omaha.
Yeah. The top 10 is all SEC. I mean, that's no doubt. South Carolina did lose their 2nd consecutive series. They got swept last weekend by Auburn. They got beat. They lost the series this weekend to Kentucky. They've fallen to 14-9 overall, a half game back of Florida, who is 15-9, and Vanderbilt is 17-7, tied with Arkansas for the best record in the SEC. And if you scroll to the bottom of the page, you will see that Ole Miss is 6-18, and Mississippi State somehow below Ole Miss in the standings at 6-18 as well. I don't know. Maybe they just did it alphabetically. No, not alphabetically because we'd be.
I don't know how they did. They pulled that one out because we have we went 3-1 against Ole Miss this year. So
no, you went 2-2.
3-1.
You went 2-2. What are you talking about? You lost the game in Jackson.
No, we didn't.
Oh, did you not?
No.
Oh, okay.
We went 3. We lost 1 game. We took 2 out of 3 in Starkville, and then we won the Governor's Cup. Missed me with that bull.
I always turn the game. You know that episode of Friends when she finds out that Old Yeller, the movie, actually ends with them shooting Old Yeller. You ever watch Friends?
Hot take. Friends is terrible. Friends is terrible. It's the Nickelback of television shows. Every episode's the same. It's trash. It's trash.
It's not terrible.
It's trash.
I'm not saying it's one of the greatest shows of all time, but it's entertaining and it's funny. Shut up.
Never thought.
All right, let me make my point. So there's this episode where Phoebe, who is the ditzy one, whose mother always sheltered her, she finds out that Old Yeller, the movie, is really sad. She's like, "What? That's a great movie. It's about a boy and his dog." And they're like, "But he shoots the dog at the end." And she's like, "No, my mom always turned off the movie. You tell me he shoots his dog?" And then she's like, "No, nobody ruined any other movies for me." Like she turns off Titanic before the boat sinks, and so she thinks all these movies are just great movies. Like, that's how I watch Ole Miss baseball. When we're winning, I turn it off.
Yeah, there you go. Well, anyway, yeah, Mississippi State's holding out at the end of at the bottom there in the rankings. Real quick, interesting though. Speaking of the SEC, kind of eating itself. That has not been the case in non-conference play. So far in the calendar year of 2023 and this year's college baseball season, the SEC has a 267 win, 61 loss, 1 tie record for a
Say that
percentage.
one more time without a bunch of marbles in your mouth.
Yeah, sorry. 267 wins, 61 losses, and 1 tie for a winning percentage of 813 against non-conference opponents. That is cooking.
Yeah, but I also want to know what that is, Power 5 versus the SWAC, but
so against the ACC with Wake Forest, we're 12-8. Against the Big East, 3-0. Let's see. The Pac-12, we are 7-3-1. Had that one weird tie with Auburn and USC. The ACC, the Big 12, we're 11-5. The Big 10, we're 14-5.
You're welcome.
15-5 against the Sun Belt. I'm fighting a sneeze.
Rusty just mouthed, "I've got to sneeze," and he can't get a thought out until he gets it out, apparently.
I'm trying to get you to take over, and you won't do it.
I don't know the stand. You've got the stats.
Just make a comment about something. Jesus, I'm over here dying.
How about just sneeze and get it over with?
I can't. It ain't coming out. Listen, if you're still listening to this podcast at the hour and a half mark, God bless you as I'm fighting a sneeze. But against the Southwestern Athletic Conference, we are 19-0.
Yeah, against the SWAC. Yeah.
Yeah, conference at the Atlantic Sun, 27-5. But yeah, again, 267, 61-1, dominating non-conference opponents. We do not have a losing record against any conference that we've played. We have not played the Mid-Eastern, the Independents, or non-Division I teams, but I have a winning record against every other conference.
Well, and allow me to interject my biases here. Is that I don't care about any of that because you're right. Elite, and I don't about it. I don't care. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. I don't have SEC pride. I don't care how we do against everybody else. The fact is that Ole Miss sucks and they suck in the SEC. However, currently, you said the SEC record against the Big Ten is what? 15 and what?
Against the Big Ten, we are 14-5.
14-5. Well, currently, Ole Miss has more wins in the Big Ten conference than Northwestern, Ohio State, Penn State, and Minnesota. Ole Miss in our non-conference played only Big Ten teams, and we finished that conference with a record of 8-1. We have more wins against the Big Ten than we have in the SEC. Have 8 wins against the Big Ten against Nebraska, Minnesota, Purdue, a series against Maryland, and then another game against Maryland. We went 8-1, and we only have 6 wins against the SEC.
It is.
So.
Yeah. And Mississippi State, we're trash. We're falling apart at the seams. Talked about earlier, Limo maybe on his way out, but just got to hit the transfer portal, get some pitching. Other than that, we're just going to ride. It's a ride out the clock situation.
I tell you what's depressing is if you look at these standings, Ole Miss 6-18 in the SEC, Mississippi State 6-18 in the SEC. Overall, Ole Miss is 25-23, and Mississippi State is 24-23. There is a real possibility that both of these teams finish the season with an overall losing record.
And it should not be, man. Those are two programs that should never be under 500 with all the talent that comes out of the state of Mississippi in baseball, with the national brand that both of us are in college baseball. There is no excuse for that.
Yeah, and you're right. LSU has perfected it. They've done what everybody hopes to do out of the transfer portal. It's what Lane is trying to do. He is going portal heavy. He said it's just as important to get the guy who's done 1 year of college and transfer. It's just as important to get him as it is a high school kid. LSU has done that with Tommy Smokes and what's the pitcher? Keen's their Friday night pitcher.
Oh.
Anyways,
Anyway.
Keen's or something like that.
Paul Skeens.
Skeens.
Paul Skeens.
Yeah. And so they went and got all these elite transfers, and that's what Ole Miss and Mississippi State's going to have to do.
Yeah, we're going to have to hit the transfer portal. There's going to be some talent out there that are leaving, and we've got to go get it.
And you've got to find some money. Yeah. And the college baseball is changing in more ways than one, too, because Mississippi has always been behind the eight ball because of their lack of a lottery scholarship. It is not easy to build a team in Mississippi. It's certainly not as easy as in Georgia or Alabama or Louisiana, where in Georgia they've got the Hope Scholarship, which can basically give a full ride to anybody you want to. LSU or Louisiana's got the same thing. I forget what it's called. Basically, you can find scholarships for players that play baseball that are not baseball scholarships.
Just like Vanderbilt, who creates all these scholarships for their players.
Yeah, and Vanderbilt benefits from being a private university.
Exactly.
But as far as public universities go, others are much easier to field a team on scholarship than it is in Mississippi. And I think there's some legislation out there that will change that very soon for the Mississippi schools. And two, high school, college baseball commits. When they commit in high school, you're typically committing like a 9th or 10th grader. Mm-hmm. They commit super early. They never decommit. There's this kind of handshake agreement in baseball that is non-existent in any other sports, to where if you're committed to Ole Miss, they kind of delete your number. Other coaches kind of delete your number.
Unless you're getting drafted. I'll see Austin Riley, who was a top Mississippi State commit, was taken 3rd overall by the Braves. You can't turn that kind of money down.
I mean, Mississippi State can't. You'll never compete with that. And
that was pre-NIL anyway. So
yeah, and so, whereas they've just changed the rule to where you can't even contact a high school baseball player until his 11th grade year.
Mm-hmm.
And they post-dated that. So if you have a commitment from a 9th grader, you cannot reach back out to that 9th grader until he becomes a junior, which is just absolutely wild to me. And it really changes the game because you probably don't miss as much with early bloomers that plateau. And you may miss some, that plateau, now that you can't contact them to their 11th grade, maybe you see that they've plateaued and you don't offer them, but it also makes the competition a lot fiercer because if you can commit an 8th grade and you're convinced, you're probably not have a lot of competition either. They just keep going younger and younger. So now, as soon as you finish your 10th grade year, it's open season from every single school in the book. It turns into football almost.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only reason why you're not committing in 9th grade as a football player is because you haven't developed into the player that you're going to be, the body that they can see.
Grow.
That's not the way in baseball.
Yeah.
If you're throwing in the low 80s with decent command in 9th grade, you're going to be looked at by colleges.
Yeah, because that's only going to continue to get better. But
speaking of, last night I went to our alma mater, Kossuth High School, and watched them play in the 3rd round of the playoffs against Alcorn Central.
Oh, nice.
And starting on the mound was Jack Eaton.
Oh, he's Hank Eaton.
Hank Eaton, yeah.
So good. Auburn commit.
He pitched. He is an Auburn commit. And through 5 innings of shutout baseball, they scratched across a couple late, but in garbage time, Ole Miss, Kossuth run ruled them 12-2.
Kossuth's good this year, and Hank he's got potential, man.
Yeah, and so he is going to Auburn. Not this season, not after this year. He's just a junior, I believe.
He's got one more year,
and he's going to pitch. I thought he was going to be a position player, but no, they did recruit him to pitch. When he came out of the game, he played shortstop.
Yeah, so. Great. He's a great baseball player. He can hit, he can pitch. But yeah, his future for the Auburn Tigers is a pitcher. So congrats to him. Heading to go play for Butch Thompson down there in Auburn.
Yeah, and I've said on this podcast many times, Butch Thompson is a Class A coach in the SEC and in college baseball in general. if anybody's going to get it out of you, it's going to be Butch Thompson.
He's on the short list that I've seen. He's got some Mississippi State ties. He's coached there. He's got some. He'd be on the short list to replace Limo, and I would be 100% okay with that.
You keep calling him Limo, but I think you should call him Lemon.
Which that's what it's been these last 2 years. 100%.
No, not that I have a lot to say, but he's kind of been a lemon since he won it, and he kind of shaped like one as well.
You're not wrong. Although he's lost a little weight this year. I think the stress might be getting to him. He's just not eating. One thing I did leave this out. One thing I did want to kind of circle back real quick as we're wrapping up to the NBA. Under the new CBA, you were talking about some of the rules around all, they're going to loosen it up. They're not going to do positions. There's also a 65 game minimum that you have to play.
I actually meant to mention that when I mentioned the positional, dropping the positional limits for all NBA.
So Jimmy Butler played 64 games. Giannis played 63. Dame played 58. Steph 56, and LeBron played 55. So none of those five would be eligible for the All NBA team.
And neither would Ja or neither would Jaren
under the new CBA. Yep.
That's interesting, and we're going to find out. For all NBA, it's going to matter because contractually it will matter. We talked about Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum's contract incentives and Jaws if he would have made another one. I wonder if that language gets removed or gets put into there's a different qualifier made other than all NBA. Maybe it's more incentive driven for stats or win shares or stuff like that more than games played. And I also wonder what scares me the most is if you'll remember who was it? I'm blanking. It was Mikal Bridges, I believe, last year, he had like the most consecutive starts. He is like Mr. Iron Man, play 82 games a year. And they clinched it up, and he went out there and for the tipped it, possession, he fouled, got out of the game. I hope that doesn't start happening.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you played, but you played 30 seconds. That's worse than finding out an hour before game time that you're resting.
Right.
If you do that.
Yeah. 100%. I don't disagree.
There will always be the teams and the players in the age of rest that we have that will find a way to rest.
Yep.
As a physical therapist, maybe we should dedicate a little bit more time one day to get your thoughts on how rest affects injuries.
Yeah.
Because I truly believe that all of these knee injuries, look at Kawhi, look at a dozen other players that are load management freaks, and they always come back and have muscle injuries or different kind of ligament injuries that I believe come from not frequently playing basketball. If I'm being
would be a very interesting podcast, and I can do a deep dive on that. All I'll say tonight is a body in motion stays in motion. And
I think Newton said that. I think that was Sir Isaac Newton.
It was nothing I'm patenting over here, but I think that'd be a great episode topic for a future episode for sure.
Yeah. And so that's all I've got tonight. I don't think I always like to run through my tweets that I've liked here to see if there's anything that I'm missing, but I feel like we've covered almost all of the bases that I've got here. So I think it's been a action-packed. We touched all of the bases tonight. We got some listener questions. We did NBA. We did college baseball. We did a little bit of NFL draft. I think we've covered all of our bases, and I'm happy with putting a wrap on it tonight.
I definitely agree. So again, those listening at home, if you're still with us at the hour and 40-minute mark, please give us your questions, give us your thoughts, give us time, give us questions that you want us to talk about on here. We will gladly attack any issue that you have. Please.
It does not have to be sports. We will answer anything.
Obviously, we talked about aliens. We talked about popcorn tonight. Give us a hot take, and we'll tell you why you're wrong. Anything that you want to pop in that questionnaire, we're going to keep putting that on our social medias. Please interact. Give us some thoughts. Give us some hard ones. Give us some hot takes that we can dissect on here.
Yeah. We look forward to continuing to get into listener stuff. And we're open for topics or whatever. Like Rusty said, he hit all the bases there. if you want to reach out with us, you can find us on our YouTube page. It's at the $2 Sports Podcast. Our Instagram is where we get most of our traffic right now. So if you really want to get a hold of us, the easiest way to do it is on Instagram in the comments or shoot us a message. Rusty will probably read it if he can figure out how.
A week later.
Yeah, our Instagram is $2 Sports Podcast #2. That's our Twitter handle as well, the #2 Sports Podcast, and we have a Facebook fan page. It's $2 Sports Podcast, and so find us there. Reach out. Promise that you will not get ignored anymore now that Rusty has successfully rounded the turning curve, the learning curve here of Instagram. Yeah. I watched Formula One this weekend. They had the Miami race, and so Red Bull finished 1 and 2 again.
I think the highlight was when they approached Paolo Banchero again and was like, "Hey, welcome to the race." He's like, "At least you know my name this year," because they called him.
Because last year they called him Pat Mahomes. Yeah, like Pat Mahomes is 6'9".
Right. Yeah.
So, tell me you've never seen an NFL quarterback in person without telling me.
Right. And what's great is when they put those guys, those Formula One drivers through those skill tests to see how athletic they are, and like to see like they're the most unathletic people, but they have like world-class reaction and driving skill. So they're obviously athletes, but watching them try and run is like watching a newborn giraffe take its first 6 steps. It is abysmal how like athletic they are in other sports besides racing cars.
Well, a wise man once said it's better to work smarter than work harder. And so some people run for a living. I'd rather drive,
Absolutely. And then,
highly, highly, highly recommend that Netflix series, Drive to Survive, the Formula One series. Mm-hmm. It's incredible. Mm-hmm. It'll really make you at least pay attention to the standings and the race results for Formula One. And occasionally I even watch one. It's great. It's great.
Well, it is getting my bedtime on the East Coast. Drew, appreciate your time tonight. Enjoyed it, sir. And we'll see you back here next week.
See you guys.